everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lucy and in today's video I am giving you some autumnal cozy book recommendations. So you probably can't hear or really sense it because I have turned every light on in this house. It is stormy outside, it is like hammering down with rain, and it's just starting to get dark. So I'm feeling all sorts of cozy and autumnal right now. Like this week in the UK, we've really started to feel it, and I'm so happy because as a lot of you guys know, this is my favorite season. So it's time for my annual book recommendations for autumn. Again, I love making this video because each year, it really allows me to think just what I'm in the mood for to read this autumn and that I think you guys will really love. So I've decided to structure this video a slightly different way where I'm going to divide it into genres and vibes. So dependent on how you like to read in the autumn, like whatever type of genre you like, whatever type of vibe you want to go for, hopefully there is something for everyone in this video. So first off, let's just go with fantasy. If you're a regular watcher of my channel, you know I am predominantly a fantasy reader. If you're new to my channel, hi, I am a big fantasy reader and I particularly love fantasy romance, which is always so perfect for this time of year. The cozy vibes, the dark vibes, love it. But I wanted to share some of my top fantasy reads for autumn. And my first recommendation has to be A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. Now, this is a kind of fantasy inspired by Scotland and really draws on Scottish mythology. So A River Enchanted follows Jack, who was brought up on the island of Cadence. But basically Jack has been off the island for a few years because he's been at a bard school on the mainland. All of a sudden he gets kind of a summons to return, and he returns and meets his kind of childhood frenemy called Adara. Now they used to be enemies when they were kids, and basically they have to join forces in order to solve a mystery where girls are going missing across the island. Now this island, the reason why I'm picking this as a key autumn book recommendation is because this island is all about the kind of natural world. It really draws on that mythology, and it is quite, the island has a life of its own basically. There are kind of fae, there are kind of mythical beings, and the reason why I think this is such a good book for fall is because it has that pure, cozy, dark vibe where there is an atmosphere to this book. It's very moody, it's very misty because this island is very temperamental in terms of the weather. It's really weather dependent, and you know, the weather is kind of a big part of this book in terms of setting the tone and the atmosphere. And if you want a truly bewitching story, a mystery but also a romance set in the natural world and based around mythology, I think you will really enjoy this book. I really did. I absolutely adored this, and I read this super quickly. It's quite a big book, but I sped through it, and I think I didn't read this in autumn, but I really wish I did, because you just feel all sorts of cozy, all sorts of atmospheric when you read this. It is the perfect sit under a blanket and read on a Sunday afternoon book, so I really would recommend A River Enchanted. Now the next book we're going to get a bit darker because this is the series I recommend to everyone all year round, no matter the time, but reading it in autumn is the way to read this series. And I did feature this in last year's video. You're gonna have to just bear with me. If you watch that video or you watch any videos on my channel, you will know that I'm obsessed with the Kingdom of the Wicked series by Kerry Maniscalco. This is the beautiful proof copy I am holding up. I do have the hardbacks of the other two books in the series, Kingdom of the Cursed and Kingdom of the Feared. This is a 3-book series with an adult spin-off coming out later this year. I would recommend all of the books, but I'm holding up the first book in the series because obviously you have to start there. So this is basically a historical fantasy book by Kerry Maniscalco featuring a witch called Amelia, and she has to work with one of the 7 princes of hell to find the person who murdered her twin sister Vittoria. Now both her and Vittoria are witches, and they are told from the get-go, don't trust one of the 7 princes of hell. They mean witches harm, they are your enemy. And she ends up having to work with one of these 7 princes of hell called Wrath. And her and Wrath have a very unique partnership where basically they are trying to solve this mystery, and it becomes very clear that something is not right here. This becomes a much larger mystery than who really killed Vittoria, but it really involves like all sides of the spectrum, from the witches to the demons, the seven princes of hell, and that kind of circle there. Let's just say the series gets dark indeed, and it also gets quite spicy. It becomes more adult as the series continues, so this is very much more YA vibes. The rest of the series more adult and a bit more spicy. Why is it perfect for autumn? The vibes. I know I keep saying vibes in this video, but this is just pure dark historic Italy vibes. I should have mentioned it's set in Italy. I mean, is that not more perfect? So if you want kind of magic, dark dealings, a chance to even potentially go to hell, then you're in the right place with the series. It is dark, delicious, there's lots of betrayals, mysteries, backstabbing, secrets, things we don't quite understand, and it's got like a spooky edge, I would say. There's definitely a forebodingness that comes with this series. It's just perfect for this time of year. It's a really great Halloween read for those who don't like horror. Something that's dark and atmospheric is perfect for you. So really have to recommend these. All of these books are 5 stars to me. I adore them. The final book in the fantasy section is none other than The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. So I read this a few years ago now for the first time, and oh my god, did I fall in love with it. The hype is real. The hype is real. So you probably have all like read this by now, but for those of you who haven't, I really do think autumn is the time of year to read this book. Genuinely one of the best, most atmospheric books I've read in a long, long time. So as the title probably suggests, this features a magical circus and 2 people who are locked in this kind of game, this competition that we don't really know a lot about, and neither do they. It's really, really fascinating, and the premise is so unique. But basically they are in this game that they can't really understand themselves, and we know it's to do with magic. Like, they have to create a magical thing that will one-up the other. It's basically a magic competition, but it's set at this magical circus called the Night Circus. And the Night Circus disappears and reappears with no rhyme or reason throughout the years. So this does kind of span multiple generations, and there is something utterly enchanting about this world and about this circus. You can smell like the crunchy leaves on the ground and the bonfire and the toffee apple. Like, it is that vibe. I really would recommend reading it closer to like bonfire night if you're in the UK, because it has that kind of similar vibe of like the circus, the bonfire. But also Halloween is such a good time to read this as well. And I think if you're looking for something beautiful, tragic, heartbreaking, but magical as well, with a dash of darkness, this book is perfect for you. Let's get on to historical fiction. So I think historical fiction is so great to read at this time of year, and I have 3 book recommendations I really would suggest that you read. So the first book has to be The Witchfinder's Sister by Beth Underdown. Now this is set in England during the time of the witch trials, and features a very prominent witch hunter called Matthew Hopkins, who was a real witch hunter. He is like probably the most well-known witch hunter, and this actually follows his sister called Alice. Now there is an author's note in the back. Obviously this is historical fiction. A lot of this has been filled in, the blanks have been filled in and fictionalized, but if you're after something that really captures the darkness of the witch trials, that kind of mania of accusing women, and also the fact that some women may have been part of witchcraft and taken part in witchcraft, then I really do think this book would be great for you. It's also a great one to read this time of year because it is really set in quite a murky time in terms of the poverty at the time, the suspicion of 1600s England and how desperate people were. So this is Alice's story, and basically it's the story about how her younger brother Matthew, who she thinks she knows, she goes away, she gets married, she comes back to their hometown, and he is all powerful. He is this witchfinder general, and he has this new kind of purpose in life to hunt down witches and basically get them accused and sent to trial and eventually killed. She tries to stop him from accusing women of killing women, but she ends up being dragged into this whole plot, and her and Matthew's relationship is really put to the test. So this is super like unsettling, suspenseful. It isn't really scary. There is an undertone of like, is it paranormal? Is it witchcraft? Is it not? I really enjoy that side of thing where you can tell there's something menacing going on. It's a bit of almost like magical realism, but it's not fully explained what it is. So if you like your historical fiction with a witchy twist, this is the perfect time of year to be reading witch historical fiction, and I really would recommend this one. It was really good fun. The second dark and dreary historical fiction I really want to recommend to you is Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier. So I read this book a few years ago, fell in love with it. This is set in deepest, darkest Cornwall, near Bodmin Moor, at a place called Jamaica Inn. Now, our main character, Mary, I believe her mother dies, and she has to go live with her aunt, who is married to a man who owns the Jamaica Inn. Now, the Jamaica Inn is quite an unusual place in that it literally is the only inn for miles. There's no town nearby. It's in the middle of the moors. Very spooky location, very atmospheric, and not a lot of people seem to be staying there, which makes Mary question, where are they getting all their money from? Like, how is this inn still keeping afloat? And let's just say that Mary investigates this, and there are links to smuggling with the inn. And her uncle, her aunt's husband who owns this inn, is a very, very dark person. He is a really awful person, and like honestly is really not likable in this book. So it's her kind of battling with him, undiscovering all this darkness about her uncle, about his links to smuggling, his links to murder, to wrecking. And it's also set against the backdrop of the moors in Cornwall, which is so atmospheric. There is also kind of a touch of a romance in this. I wouldn't call it romantic, but there is a touch of a romance if that's what you're after. But the main vibe to this book is just the dark like atmosphere and the unsettling atmosphere of all these kind of very dodgy dealings going on at this very kind of spooky inn. So I really would recommend this if you want something gothic, a little bit kind of twisty, and you want to learn more about smuggling and wrecking at the time. So love this book, really would recommend. And moving on to the next type of book that I really want to recommend to you for this video, which is the cozy vibes section. So if you're not a spooky reader, you want more of the autumnal vibes, that you want cozy books that you can read under a blanket that give you that comforting feel, then I have got 3 incredible books for you. So the first one I recommend a lot at this time of year. I'm just going to mention it briefly because you probably have all heard me talking about it. It is Pumpkinhead by Rainbow Rowell and Faith Erin Hicks. I mention this book all the time this time of year. It is a graphic novel, and it is set at a pumpkin patch where basically these two people who they only really see each other when they work at this pumpkin patch every autumn. They're also just about to go off to college, so this will be the last year really that they'll be at the pumpkin patch. And it's kind of a romance where they want to confess their feelings to each other, but they have to find each other in the midst of this massive pumpkin patch, this massive like maze, and this kind of attraction, I guess. The best thing about this book is really the illustrations and just the autumn fall setting. I'm just like a little bit obsessed with the aesthetic. It's just a really, really cute read. It's very wholesome. It won't take you long to read it all. This is the perfect book to read in a day under a blanket with your pumpkin spice latte and just have a great day, because it's just wholesome. It's lovely, it's cozy, it's a romance. Very, very quirky, and it just gives you all the feels. The next book I need to recommend, I read this last year, absolutely loved it. Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. So this features a very dark, unsettling town that is basically, I want to say, an island. So it's very cut off from like the mainland. You have to get a ferry across to this island. And this island have their own rules, their own traditions, their own mythology and folklore. This features a couple who are broken up now, but they were childhood sweethearts. Until the day that something very dramatic happened that resulted in the murder of someone, I want to say. So August, who is the guy love interest, he ended up leaving the island that day with his mother to escape from this drama that happened. And let's just say the town still cling to this event that happened. You don't really find out what went on. That is the crucial mystery of like what actually happened here. But the other main character, Emery, remains on the island, and she's basically continued living on the island since the events that happened. This is really full of like small town secrets, a great kind of second chance love story, I guess, because August comes back to the island. He's drawn back there because someone in his family dies. If you like books where you're waiting to the last few pages to find out the mysteries and the secrets, then you will love this. There's also a dash of witchcraft, a dash of magic, and there's lots of spooky goings on, I would say. Like, this is more unsettling, chilling, but also really cozy. I think because it is set in a small town, it's got those small town vibes. Like, it is so cozy. And honestly, this is one of the most atmospheric books I've read in a long time. You can just really get a sense of like the weather and the setting. It is really, really beautiful. So I would recommend you reading Spells for Forgetting. And for me, a hugely cozy book, which I think can be read all year round, but I would really recommend for autumn because there is like more of a natural element to it, and it is set somewhere really cold, is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. Now this book is just charming, quaint, sweet, like, oh, just so amazing. I really would recommend you read this if you've not already. So this features Emily Wilde, who, she's an expert on fairies. She's an academic. She travels to this place where it has like a really long name. It's basically inspired by Iceland, I think. It's like an Icelandic type vibe. She is joined on this island by Wendell, who is kind of an enemy to her. He is a rival academic. He is one of the most well-known academics in like fairy lore. And he joins her for many reasons, mainly so that he can also kind of get that glory of discovering these fairies that have been long misunderstood and not fully researched in this area, but also I think so he can keep an eye on Emily, because hunting fairies is very dangerous. And especially in this book, like, you do see a lot of the fairies and understand their ways of living, I guess, and their kind of rules and quirks. So if you like fairy books and you want something very cozy, romantic, with like a dash of like whimsy, you will absolutely adore this book. There does become a more sinister undercurrent in the plot where, you know, the fairies become very dangerous, and there is also the mystery of who Wendell really is. There's a big mystery over his identity and if he's really telling the truth as to who he actually is. So I love this. There is obviously a simmering romance between Wendell and Emily, but don't go into this book expecting like a steamy romance or anything. Like, it's very kind of light on the romance, but really, really high on the cozy vibes. And from cozy vibes to spooky vibes, because we're getting close to Halloween. And for those of you guys who want to read something a lot darker and not as quirky or cozy, then these three books will probably be great for you. I'm also not a horror reader, so please don't expect horror books because I don't really read horror at all. I've got an overactive imagination, and I think horror books and me just wouldn't go together very well. Anyway, but what I really do love are kind of those unsettling, spooky, chilling reads that are so perfect for this time of year. So quickly, first up we have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This is my beautiful proof that I got sent a few years back. I just wanted to hold this up. You probably all heard of Ninth House. It is an incredible book and an incredible series. It's an ongoing series, and the second book, Hellbent, came out at the beginning of 2023. So Ninth House is set at Yale University, featuring a character called Alex Stern. And Alex can see ghosts, like she can see to the other side and communicate with them, draw their energies, all sorts. So she goes to Yale University, and she is part of this college, I guess, where their job is to monitor the kind of supernatural ongoings of Yale University, and in particular the supernatural goings on of the secret societies at Yale. So Yale have these secret societies. Each of them are working towards different goals. They have different requirements of like who needs to get in, different purposes, but all of them do rituals and take part in ritualistic magic. And it's really Alex's job to make sure that they're doing all this right, like make sure they're not doing anything silly, to monitor them, to cleanse the area, to do kind of counter rituals, I guess. And Ninth House really introduces us to Alex's world, her past, which is quite dark. There are a lot of trigger warnings in Ninth House, like please do look them up if you think you would be sensitive to that. And Ninth House for me is such a chilling, dark, atmospheric book. And we really see the other side of the veil, I guess, in terms of like ghosts and demons and all sorts. So I really would recommend Ninth House if you like your dark academia with a hint of spookiness. This book is perfect for you. It is supernatural. It does have like magical goings on. So it's perfect for this time of year. Now, next up is a thriller, which I absolutely adored. It's another dark academia book, which I just find it so great for Halloween, for autumn. So that leads me on to The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. This book is set at Cambridge University and features a woman who used to go to Cambridge. She met her husband there, her late husband, who is now dead. She ends up going back there because her niece, I guess, or her ward, also goes to Cambridge, and she is summoned back when there seem to be these strings of murders going on at Cambridge, and our main character tries to get to the bottom of these. And seemingly connected to these murders is a man called Edward Foster, who is a professor at Cambridge, and he has cultivated this group of students called the Maidens. The murders seem to be these maidens, like these maidens are dying, I guess. So it's all very suspicious. So I really would recommend this for some dark academia goodness. But if you want more of a thriller vibe where there is a murder and someone has to solve it, then I really do think this one is for you. I love reading thrillers at this time of year, but mixing it with dark academia is like the perfect blend. And finally, I have to recommend A Diary of Blood by S.T. Gibson. Now, A Diary of Blood, I read it recently. I wish I kind of saved it for this time of year, but this book is incredible. If you've not yet read this, please read it. It is so, so good. It follows a woman called Constanta, who is Dracula's first bride. And she basically is saved by Dracula when her village is like pillaged, I guess. She is from Romania and she is saved by him and given a second life. And they have this incredible, all-consuming love story, I guess, where he is very protective over her, but he shows her like another element. It's very kind of hedonistic. And they have a very obsessive kind of love story. But then Dracula starts to expand their family unit and brings on a second wife, followed by a man in the group as well. And at first, Constanta doesn't really want this. Like, she doesn't want to bring new people into their relationship, their family. But soon she sees the benefits of this and really kind of gets on board and really starts to love both of the newcomers equally. However, it becomes very, very clear that Dracula has a very dark, obsessive personality, which Constanta has realized over the years, and it's only when more people are brought into that circle that she truly sees what a monster he is. And not only that, but he is controlling, he's obsessive, he is very toxic, guys, and is willing to do dark things to keep his unit kind of his own, and doesn't want them to really have a life outside of him. So this is an incredible book if you're after something dark, delicious, seductive, featuring vampires. Like, there is a lot of like vampire goodness in this, but also something quite sinister. Like, there is something super sinister about this book in the sense of Dracula's obsessive, controlling personality. Like, the things that he will do, you always feel like the main character is being watched in this book, and that you don't really know what Dracula's gonna do next, and there's something super unsettling and chilling about that. It is perfect to read at this time of year, very atmospheric, and basically spans from like the Middle Ages until pretty much modern day. So if you're looking for something all-consuming, quite short in retrospect to what a big story this tells, then this will be the book for you this autumn. So guys, that is it for my autumnal book recommendations. I really hope you found a book in here that has inspired you to pick up a book this autumn, and I really hope there is something for everyone in this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you did enjoy this video, why not click subscribe? It really helps me out, and you can join our lovely community over here on YouTube. And I will see you very, very soon with my next one. Bye!